Okay, here goes. This not my thing, but here I go. uh, so I just want to put it out there. Well, first of all, some of the stuff I will talk about might be triggering. Just so want to put that out there, especially if this is going to be on YouTube. Younger people might be too young for them to hear it, but here goes. My purpose to give my testimony is not for recognition or, attention. It's maybe to help someone else who might have gone through something similar to what I've gone through. And to know that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope and happiness and forgiveness at the other end. I'm going to talk about my childhood. I grew up, we lived in the trailer park. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich. But we didn't go without food or clothes, but it wasn't easy. I was saved at 7 at a young age, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about. When I was pretty young, my mom and dad were married, and we were in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, all the time. My father was studying to be a pastor. He went to school at what's now Liberty University, but it was called Liberty Baptist College back then. And so, just a little backstory. My sister was born when I was 8. I was the only child until I was 8 years old. Not long after that, my dad graduated college, was going to go into the ministry, and I guess he started out and realized it was hard. My mother, I will say, she had some mental illness. I'll just put that out there. She had mental illness. She, didn't keep house very well. And so my dad's reason that he told me later that he quit, the ministry was because he would have to bring people to the house. And, she wouldn't keep house. So he just thought, well, I can't do this. He quit and went in the total opposite direction. He started driving a truck, and then he was gone all the time, weeks at a time. And I just remember longing for him, Ooh, that's hard. Okay. So when that went on for a couple of years, my dad just being gone on the road all the time. I noticed he started smoking cigarettes and, just not living the Christian life. So then when I was, okay, sorry. When I was 10, Christmas Day came, and my dad was home, for Christmas. I opened my presents with my little sister that morning, and then my dad walked out the door on Christmas Day. I didn't know what was happening, but my mother went berserk, begging him not to go. And it was about a couple days later, my dad came back to pick my sister and I up, put us in the car, and on the way to where we were going, he says, "Oh, I have a new girlfriend. We're going to meet her." And I'm like, okay. My thoughts were, I'm going to hate this woman. So that's what we did. We went to meet his new girlfriend, who became my stepmother later. You know, so at that point, you know, he had left us, basically. So after that, I lived with my mother, and her mental illness got worse. I would say she had many meltdowns. My memories were of her just going through the house, up and down the house, screaming. And then she would just cry, just, you know, more than cry. And then it got to where, you know, she would just cuss us out, you know, and it was an everyday thing. And then the you know, she would hoard. We you know, lived in garbage, basically. And my way of coping with that would be to go in my room. You know, because I could still hear her screaming, cussing, yelling, calling me every name in the book. But at least I couldn't see her, you know. But my room was my safe place. And that will be relevant later. But I will say this, it wasn't every day. My mother wasn't always like that. There were times where she was a good mother. You know, if I got sick, she would take care of me. She would just go back and forth, kind of like Jekyll and Hyde. I also want to put it out there, both my parents are gone now. I believe they're both in heaven. And they're not here to defend themselves, but, you know, this is just my story. There were a few moments that I remember vividly. She was mostly verbally abusive, not physically abusive very much, at least with me. She wasn't very physically strong, and I guess at that point I was almost as big as she was. But she was physical with my younger sister. One major blow up was we were just sitting there watching TV one night, and my little sister, she wanted my glass Coke bottle that I was drinking out of for whatever reason. She was like 2 or 3. And I'm like, no, you can't have this. It's dangerous. You can't have a glass Coke bottle. And, so she started throwing a tantrum. And when that happened, my mother just exploded. And it ended up, she picked my little sister up by her head, grabbed her by her neck, and picked her up by her head. So I grabbed her feet, so she wouldn't break her neck. And when I did that, my mom just kind of went back in her room and just cried, or I guess cried herself to sleep or whatever. But that was very memorable. I think back then they didn't have depression medications. They would give you Valium. So now I know that that's pretty much alcohol in a pill. So that was what she would call her nerve pill, but she wasn't doing anything wrong because it was prescribed to her. But I didn't think it did her any good. Another incident was I was about 16, and I came home, had a friend of mine. I was at the door. I opened the front door. My mother's standing right there, and she just yelled at me, "Why did you put your coat on my bed?" And I'm like, "My coat on your bed?" And she grabs me by my hair on both sides, and just pulls my hair. And at that moment, I'm a little older, a little bit bolder. So I grab her by her hair and I tell her, "Don't you ever touch me again." And at that point, I think that scared her. She went back in her room, left me alone. And then another memorable moment was I was getting ready for school, and me and my sister were walking out, getting ready to go to the bus, and she had a hard bristle hairbrush, and I don't know what she was mad at, but she was aiming for my little sister, and she threw it, and it hit me right in the face, and it was so hard. It cut my lip, and I was like, "Mama, why did you do that?" She just told me, she said, "Well, you were in the way." So I had to go to school like that. My mother, she didn't hang around the best people. I guess anybody who would give her attention, she craved that. So she had this friend who had a boyfriend, and they weren't the best quality people. So one day I come home from school, and my neighbor would pick me up from school and bring me home. And I had a little neighborhood friend. As I was walking toward my trailer, she saw me, and she's like, "Oh, hey, come to my house, after you go home and change." And so I'm like, "Okay, yeah, we'll hang out." So I go to my house. Okay, this is hard to talk about, but I'm gonna tell it. Um, and my mother's friend's boyfriend pulls up in the driveway, and I'm standing outside my door with my key, and he gets out and he says, "Can I come in and wash my hands?" And I'm a 12, and I told him, "No, I can't let anybody in the house." And he said, "Well, it's just me. Y'all know me." And I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to let him in the house. He made me uncomfortable. But, I was supposed to respect my elders. So I let him in the house. And we were in the kitchen, and this would not be for any young people to hear, but, he got a glass of water, and next thing I know, he's asking me for a hug. And I didn't know what to say. Okay, and he hugs me, and then he puts his hands on me. And at that point, I was scared out of my mind. So then I tell him, well, I keep hoping he's going to leave, So tell him, well, I've got to go change my clothes, thought that would make him leave. So I walk back to my mother's room where my clothes were. He follows me. And then he's standing by the door of my mother's room, and he's like, "Oh, do you like candy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess." And so he touched me again, basically. The whole time he seemed very nervous. So then he kind of walked away after that and went back down the hall. So I kind of went back down the hall behind him, thinking I'm just going to go in my room where it's safe, my safe place. So he stops right in front of my room and wants to hug me again. And so he does, puts his hands on me. Then he tries to kiss me, tries to put his tongue in my mouth. I turn my head. He tells me, "Oh, you know how to do this." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't have any boyfriends." And so I guess he got a little nervous. He walked away again. I didn't tell y'all before, I forgot about this, but when I would go in my room, when my mother would be ranting, my door was hard to open. I was the only one who knew how to, this gets me, how to open my door. There was a trick to it. It was just one of those old trailer doors that had a plastic doorknob, It was broken, but I knew the trick to get it open. And my mother, she just didn't bother with trying to figure it out. So going back to when he walked away, I quickly went in my room, shut the door. sat on my bed. At that point, he comes back, and I could hear him rattling my doorknob, and he couldn't get it open. I knew what was going to happen, what his intention was at that point. Sorry, and then I heard a knock at the door, and it was my little friend, and she's calling my name, and he runs out the door when he sees her. Yeah, so, yeah, I was rescued. Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind what was going to happen next. When I was, thinking back about this, I didn't remember really about that doorknob. But now I'm like, that was God. That was God protecting me. That broken doorknob, all those years. And I was the only one who knew how to open it. And yeah, that was on purpose. That's about it. Yeah, that's the end. So, thank you for listening. And I hope this helps somebody who may have gone. Sorry, it's not the end. My purpose for saying this is that there's recovery on the other side. There's forgiveness. I've learned over the years to forgive my mother, to forgive this man who was coming after me, to forgive my father. And I will say, in my later years, my father did ask for forgiveness, for his part. But there's happiness and joy and hope on the other side. And I live a happy life now. And I don't live in the past or in unforgiveness. Okay, now that's the end.